Here we go. Okay, so today we have Rowie, and Max.
That's right.
If you can both introduce yourself, if you don't mind, age, location. I don't know if you're in the same place, and if you want to disclose your full name, it's entirely up to you.
Sure. I'll start. My name is Max Tressman. I grew up in America. I actually grew up in San Diego, California. I currently live in Israel, and I'm 29 years old, and I've been in e-commerce now for just about 4 years. Yeah, that's sort of a short background about me. Roy, you can.
So I'm Roy Arbel, Roy, however you want to pronounce it. I live in Israel. I'm 43 years old, so I'm the responsible adult between the two of us, I guess you could say. I've been in e-commerce. I think, Max, it's longer than 4 years, pretty close to 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, and I've been doing it full time pretty much ever since.
Okay. So you, Rowie, have you did you also grow up in the States, or did you spend some time in the States, or you've always been in Israel?
No, I spent a good few years in some in Canada, some in the States when I was younger, so I was back and forth.
Okay, so how do you both know each other, of interest?
Well, we met on one of the groups that we were both.
I thought he was going to sound a dating site.
No, but we were, as a lot of people do when they start, when they get into e-commerce, they join all these Facebook groups, and a few years ago it was a bit different than it is today. So we were on the same group. We had this shared mentor, and that's how we connected. For a very long time, we were just really
running each other's business.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, until we decided to partner up about a year ago.
Okay, nice. So ever since about a year ago, that's when you started working together in ecom.
Officially, I guess you could say, because before that we were.
And you're not that has any bearing on it, but do you both, your ethnicity is both from Israel?
No, I'm not. I recently moved to Israel. I only moved to Israel about a year, actually right before COVID, about a month before COVID started, we moved. I mean, obviously I'd visited Israel before, but never lived here officially. So now I'm a resident, a citizen, or
cool.
However you call it.
Nice.
Whereas Rowie was actually, I think you were born here, right?
I was born in Canada.
Oh, wow.
But since I was 1 year old, I lived here. So it's almost the same.
Okay, cool. Okay, right. Well, let's. Thanks for sharing all that, and let's get into it. So, the kind of question that everyone wants to start off with is how much, because I know, Mac, we've been working together for some time. You first, I think it was about 2 years ago when you first started using us. Then you kind of had a break, or you used another company, then you came back. So you've been back and forth with it. So, I'm not fixed on any of the stores or brands. What was your peak month? How much revenue did you generate?
My peak ever, I think, was after we were partnered together. This past January, so January of 2021, we did about $380,000. I think, was it $380,000 in revenue, and that was sort of following up on a pretty good lead up from Q4 as well. January happened to just be our best month. A lot of e-commerce brands, I think, slow or scale down Q1. And I think things kind of picked up even more for us in January.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool. And was that because it was seasonal, or just you managed to extend the?
Well, I think it's related to the industry that we're in, which is fitness, and so a lot of people in January are taking on their New Year's resolutions, and so we kind of fit in with that, and it kind of tied into the brand. So tie that in with lockdowns and everything else that was going on in the world, kind of worked in our favor.
And obviously that was with Rowie. This is the same store. You were both.
All right. Okay. That's after we launched the store together.
Okay. And I take it that was also your highest generating if with your history as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so a good collaboration.
Definitely.
Okay, so what was roughly what your profit margin was for that month?
I don't remember exactly. I think we were around. I think it was 12 or 13%.
Okay.
I think it was a little higher than that.
Who does the accounts?
We share the task.
Yeah, I would say it was probably 13 or 14, maybe 14%, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Cool, no problems. So next question is quite interesting. Is I mean, depends who wants to answer this first. Before you started doing e-commerce, 4 or 5 years ago, what was your background before that? So was you working full time? What profession? And what made you switch to ecom, or try ecom rather?
I was in marketing for a while, around 15 years before I went into ecom. A bunch of positions within the marketing industry, from brand management to category, and then I was even marketing manager of some of the larger consumer brands in the country. And so marketing and understanding the customer and everything, that was part of my career throughout the whole time. It was just always obvious to me that at some point I do want to become an independent entrepreneur. I didn't know exactly how or what I was going to do, and at some point it was being 43 years old now, it was I either do it now or don't do it at all, and that's when the time was right and I just started.
Cool. And did you? I can kind of see a trend here. I'm not sure if you've seen the other interviews I've done so far. There's 3 in total. One is going to be posted in 2 days' time. But I can see kind of like a trend here. Is like those who are relatively successful or really successful have some kind of relatable experience, and one of those being marketing. Do you find that that's true in your case, or I mean, was it directly applicable to your transition?
In my case, I think it was very important. I think it gave me, first of all, it made things quicker for me from the start. Like, the start was very difficult as always, and you need a lot of perseverance, but a lot of the knowledge I acquired during my career, I was able to apply in e-commerce and online marketing and understanding the customer. And I think that's, especially now, when a few years ago, dropshipping was at its peak, and the way the dropshipping industry was working was you could basically come and copy what other brands are doing and get away with it. I mean, have okay numbers. But now you need to come to this with a more marketing point of view. So when I did that 4 or 5 years ago, it did give me some sort of an advantage. I feel that it made a big difference. And Max is going to say in a few minutes what his background is. I think Max's background also helped him. And this is, I think, also, I know that's not the question, but I think also this is what makes us work very well together, because we understand how to run the business, and not only from a marketing standpoint. So yeah, experience was very important.
That's Max.
Yeah, sure. So, before I got into ecom, I was actually in a very different industry. When I was 23 years old, I started a business, a non-emergency medical transportation company. So we transported patients who were confined to wheelchairs. So we had a fleet of wheelchair vans. It started with one van, me driving on my own for 15 hours a day, going from hospitals to nursing homes, and it was pretty stressful. But eventually built it up to a fleet, and we had like 10 drivers and dispatchers, so obviously it wasn't fully like a marketing type background like Roy had been through, but definitely like taking a business from sort of nothing to something. There's a lot of lessons that I learned in there. Ultimately, there were many reasons why the business, after about 4.5 years, the business closed down or shut down. I kind of stopped it, and in the year or so leading up to when I shut the business, I obviously knew that things were kind of headed south. So that's when I started exploring e-commerce and kind of diving into the world of e-commerce and learning and kind of really understanding what it takes to make it in e-commerce, and that's kind of where things got started. And
cool. Okay. So it was actually your company, you started it from scratch?
I did, yeah. It was an adventure. A lot of stress. I don't recommend anybody listening to this to ever get involved in any type of transportation at all, but definitely not medical transportation.
I agree.
It's a high stress, low reward business.
Yeah, I mean, at 23 as well, that's really impressive for you to undertake such a big task and to grow it to 10 drivers. That's great. But did it do you find it helped in any way with your e-coms? I mean, there
are bits and pieces. I mean, obviously it's a very different style business. It's not like direct to consumer or anything like that in terms of e-commerce, but I think just in terms of like running a business day to day and understanding like what it really takes, and that it's not just, as Roy was saying, it's not like 5 years ago where you could just sort of slap a product on Shopify and run a picture ad on Facebook. That there's more to running a business than just making it overnight. But yeah, I mean, obviously without getting into all the details of the ins and outs of learning what it takes to run a business. But yeah.
Cool. So when did you? So I think you said, Max, you started about 5 years ago, you said, for e-commerce?
Yeah, about 4.5. Okay. When I started to get into it, started picking it up and learning it, yeah.
And that was dropshipping, yeah?
That was dropshipping, yeah.
Yeah, and Roe, you said it was about 4 years ago, you said?
No, it was also around 4.5, 5 years. We started pretty much at
the same time.
I started, I think I started a few months before, but I'm not sure.
And also dropshipping.
Dropshipping.
Cool.
I actually dabbled with Amazon a bit for like a few weeks before I got into Shopify and e-commerce.
Okay, so you didn't have much success with Amazon?
No, it was a really, really, really short time before I realized that, coming from a marketing background, that Shopify is much more interesting from that respect.
Yeah. Suited your skill set more, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long after you started dropshipping did you find success?
Define success.
Well, I guess for dropshipping, it's being able to be profitable, whether that's selling 10 products or 1,000. So I guess depends how you want to define success as well.
Well, for me, it took a while. It took a good few months. I mean, first it was getting the first sale, which is a really
monumental.
Yeah, exactly. And then nothing after that for a while. Then you find one product that starts selling consistently, but it's like very low quantity. And then, so I think it took, to be profitable, it took me at least 6 months, at least.
Cool. Yeah. And when you say profitable, was it consistent? Were you able to scale it, or was it only for a very, very short period of time?
It was consistent, but it wasn't scalable. For some reason, I wasn't able to scale it. Now looking back, I can analyze it why, but at that stage, I wasn't able to scale it. So it was profitable as a business, but it wasn't enough as income for me as doing it full time. But if I look back, there's like different steps on the way when you build your experience, and then one of them is that stage. And there's always like big jumps.
Yeah, hindsight is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely.
Max, how about you?
Yeah, I would say it probably took me a little bit longer. I want to say, there's different stages of when I would say I really started. There was the initial stage of when I just started to explore e-commerce as an option, and then sort of deciding on the whole dropshipping route as the financially the easiest route at the time to kind of get into e-commerce, rather than loading up on inventory of a product that's not proven, etc. So I would say from when I first started dabbling, learning about e-commerce, until I really started selling my first, quote unquote winning product, was probably close to 10 months, 11 months.
Okay.
From when I, obviously Roy mentioned at the beginning of this that we, we both used the same mentor to kind of teach us the ropes, learn, understand the industry of dropshipping. So from that, it took me about, I would say about 6 or 7 months. And I wasn't decided on, like I had a product, I scaled it, it was going great. And then it was a seasonal product. So obviously it came to a halt. And then after that, I kind of started to understand, okay, what is it that works and what doesn't work? And then ultimately, turned it into more of a niche, unique kids educational toys and games.
Cool. Okay.
Store.
So would you say that, just to make it clear to the viewers, from when you've started physically trying to, sell products, it wasn't the case that it was a complete failure for the first 6 months. You had some success, small success. So it kind of kept you going in that sense. It kept
Absolutely.
your morale up. If you kind of look back, and if over that 6 period you weren't able to sell a single item, do you think you would have given up?
So, there's 2 ways of looking at this. There's a lot of people that I'm not trying to, categorize anybody, but I think that, if you're doing it right, meaning as long as you're not just taking products and copying other brands and stores, but you're really taking the time to understand what is it that makes a product unique and what's a product that people that helps people at the end of the day. Then I think, you'll see small successes on the way. And that will motivate you to continue going. I through those 6 months or 11 months or whenever you want to count it, there was always the knowledge that like it's going to work. It's just a matter of when, not if it will work. Or it was always, when is this going to when am I going to get there? And I think that's something that's really important for people starting out. Is like, it's not gonna, for most people, it's not gonna happen right away. It takes time to really, learn the ins and outs and test, different things and find your spot and your sweet spot. And so, it takes time. It's not an easy thing. Roy and I were just talking about this the other day that, when we started, I would lock myself, on a Sunday for 15 hours in my office and just sit there and just pound away. And like, it requires commitment. Like anything in life, if you want to get somewhere, you really need to commit to something and put your all into it. So,
yeah. Cool. So I'll direct this at Rowie. What you obviously encountered many problems and obstacles with dropshipping and e-commerce. If you had to choose one of the biggest obstacles, what would it be?
It's hard to say because there's like different types of difficulties. I think in terms of, it's called the traditional things that you need to do, then I think product research and finding that winner and psychologically knowing that you're going to find it, that's one of the difficulties is being, it's like Max said, understanding that this is something that works and you just have to find a way to make it work and being able to continue doing it until you do. So that's the mental aspect of it was very difficult. But if you're talking more like operational wise, I think it was the whole working with AliExpress suppliers at the time, because before we started working with you, we also worked with suppliers that we met on AliExpress and then started working with them off of AliExpress. So it was stages, but getting up to that point, it was very inconsistent. The communication was very difficult, and suddenly, the supplier was out of stock, and he wouldn't even tell you, and you realize you have like 3 weeks worth of orders that weren't even shipped, and like all these things that cause you like to, you feel like you're going forward, and then you're going back, and you have to deal with all that crap, and it's like that's something that was very difficult.
Cool. Yeah, it's great. It's good that you mentioned, because no one's mentioned this yet, about kind of getting off the starting line with the product research, and because there's so many who would just be stuck on that and procrastinate, right. Or not even procrastinate, there's just so many choices and options, whether it's products or niches or angles, that it's difficult to get off that line. So
it's not only that. Sorry, I'm cutting off.
Right.
There's cases that a product is working for someone else, and you're trying whether you're copying or not doesn't really matter right now, but you're trying the same product, a very similar product, and you fail, and it doesn't work. Facebook is so inconsistent. We're using, just like most e-commerce websites, we're using Facebook as our main advertising platform, and it's so inconsistent that you think you're doing everything okay, and it still doesn't work. It's so hard. It's finding the right product and then also being able to do something with it. That's very difficult.
Exactly, yeah. And to add to that, I remember when I was dropshipping I sound like such an idiot because I've said this a few times in my other interviews. When I was dropshipping back in the days, one of a friend of mine who got it working really well. He was selling like a generic bag, a lady's handbag, and he generated something like $1 million worth of sales in just over a month. And the thing is, it was also consistent. And at that point, me and my partner, who was dropshipping and helping each other at that point in time, we're at a point where, okay, we found a winner, then it ran out of steam, and then we kept testing and we didn't find any success. So we was like to my other friend who'd done this over $1 million revenue in sales. We asked him, do you mind if we just do a test? Can we rip everything that you're doing? Everything. I mean, the creatives, the landing page, the product, the ad, everything, whatever you can think of, and see if we can replicate your success. And I don't think we even sold a single bag. And it just shows that it's not just about having the same strategy or the same kind of technique. It's timing as well, and it's obviously the ad platform. There's so much to it, and I think everyone watching this needs to kind of understand that is, before, you might be lucky enough to be able to just rip something and make it identical and it would work, but now it's so much more difficult. That just doesn't work anymore. If you're lucky, it might do, but chances are not.
I used to have a boss that said the number one rule of business is luck. So I disagree, but it's very similar to what you're saying. And the fact what you're saying also is, today Max and I are dealing with, on a daily basis, with an absurd amount of stores that try to steal, to copy our pages. There's all these apps now that copy the page exactly with a click of a button. So we see them all the time. Now all of our products are all trademarked, and our images are copyrighted and everything, but still they copy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it drives me crazy, not because they're copying us, but because they're so lazy. It's like, if you want to succeed, don't try to copy someone else. You have to understand things the right way.
At least spin up a new angle on our
yeah. Change the brand name. I mean,
change the name so that we don't have to take you down.
Ridiculous. So I'll quickly ask you the same question, Max. So did you have any obstacles, or obviously you did? Let's rephrase that. What was the largest obstacle that you had? If you had
I sort of reflecting on what Roy just mentioned. I think for me the biggest issue was always working with AliExpress suppliers, and I can't even begin to tell you the amount of issues and problems. Just one example, I had at the same time that I was running my kids' store, I opened up like a quick selling this unique like a duffel bag for suits. Anyway, and I found a supplier, and everything was going great. And it was December, and sales were really picking up. And I had about 2 or 3 weeks worth of sales, and the supplier kept sending tracking numbers. And because there was just so much going on at the same time, I wasn't being on top of it, which is just the worst when you're working with an AliExpress supplier. And after 3 weeks, someone sent an email. I checked one of the links and the tracking number, and it's nothing updated. So I check in with the supplier, and there's a back and forth. Before he finally admits, listen, I ran out of stock, but we're getting in another 3 weeks. And anyway, he wouldn't refund it. I had to submit a dispute to my credit card company for $16,000. It was a huge mess. I had the customers were set disputes. It was a never-ending issue. So just those types of things were just, it almost felt like it was constant when I was like drop shipping directly from AliExpress. There was always issues with supply and communication and was just a constant thing. And yeah, that was I by far, I think that was my biggest struggle when I was,
Cool.
really drop shipping.
I think everyone who has scaled on AliExpress can probably relate to that, or most people rather. If you're lucky, I mean, as you know, both of you know, you can come across good, reliable and reputable AliExpress vendors. It's quite hit and miss.
So hard to find them.
Yeah. So
even though in cases where I did have good suppliers, good AliExpress suppliers, it always seems like at some point
6 months.
Yeah,
that's your
it only lasts 6
something
months.
happens. Suddenly there's bad communications, and suddenly there's product issues. Like everything was going great, and then it just stops. Like it's crazy every time.
Right. Did the EU VAT regulations affect you, any of you, in any way?
Not that much. I mean, we sell to the EU, but it's not one of our biggest markets. So yeah, it didn't affect us that much.
Okay, cool. Same question for iOS 14, the update.
Yeah, that's iOS 14. So I we've Rowie and I, since we started, I've pretty much been in charge of paid social. There was a period of time where we did outsource to an agency.
A leading agency.
Yeah, I obviously will not say the name, but we did go with one of the leading agencies in the industry. Pretty much everybody knows who they are, and unfortunately, it was a big disappointment. It was actually right before iOS 14. But yeah, since iOS 14, cut to the point, it's been a big struggle. Just because you're pretty much running blind with Facebook. Facebook's modeling data. It's not accurate at all. Even the, first of all, just to begin with, you're not seeing, the attribution. You're seeing maybe 30-40% of purchases that are being tracked, and those are guesses of where they're coming from. So one of the big things that we're focusing on now is, first of all, creative, content creative. That's the biggest that's the biggest thing on Facebook now, is having good content, great content, and running broad. I mean, that's what's working for us. We've pretty much, lookalikes are a thing of the past for us. I can't say that's for everyone. They just don't work anymore for us since iOS 14. But yeah, we go broad. It's a struggle as a small business, not a huge company, to constantly produce new assets for creatives, but it's something that's we're working on, and it's really something that I think makes a difference. It's just constantly plugging in new creative for iOS. Okay. That's the only way to survive.
Yeah, I've heard that. You kind of answered the next question as well. How did you resolve that? But the last interview we had with the same question, it was a similar answer, running broad. And so whoever's watching this, that may help. So whether that answer repeats itself going forward might be quite interesting. So which, obviously you use Facebook, but do you use any other platforms to drive traffic to your store?
We use Google. We work with an email marketing agency. So email is a big part of our revenue as well. And we are now experimenting with TikTok ads, because in my opinion, I think that's the future. I do think that within a couple of years at the most, I think that TikTok will overtake Facebook as the leading platform in terms of advertising and being like the go-to, just like Facebook was in the last couple of years.
Sure.
I'm addicted to TikTok.
So you don't fit the
demographic.
I stay away. I haven't got TikTok on my. In fact, to this date, I still don't even use Instagram on my phone. It took me about
man.
eight years to just start with Facebook, but So let's crack on. So after, obviously, actually coming back to that question, the email marketing agency you use, obviously they were much better than the Facebook agency you used, which is probably why you're still using them. Or is it a recent thing? Have you been using them for a while?
The email agency. Yeah, I think almost a
Over
year.
a year.
We started Q4 last year.
Cool. And you've obviously seen a noticeable uptake or profit margins in your sales with email.
Yeah, definitely. Email is about, it depends when, 15 to 20% of our revenue comes from email. We're trying to increase that always, but it is pretty consistent in that respect, and it's a very, very important part of the business. Our portfolio is relatively small, so we're kind of limited in what we can do. So also on email, also we put a lot of emphasis on content. So it's not just promotions and sales and stuff like that. We do a lot of content to engage our customers, to give them valuable stuff, and especially now coming into getting close to Black Friday and then the peak of Q4, this is where email is going to be the most crucial for the business.
Cool. So why did you make the transition to a fulfillment company? Aside from the obvious reasons with the AliExpress issues, was there anything else that made you pull the trigger?
It was a process for both of us. I mean, a process that started before we even partnered up. We started on AliExpress, then went with AliExpress suppliers off of AliExpress, and then from there you go into Chinese fulfillment companies. And every time there seems to be some sort of an issue. Max told a story about his supply with his travel bags. I had an issue a bit after COVID started with a lot of shipping issues and them not telling us the truth, and it cost us tens of thousands of dollars, which we were able to get back partially. But every time there was something, and there are two main reasons that we always searched for the next solution. First of all, Max started working with you a couple of years ago. I was very close to starting. You probably don't even remember, but you were highly recommended by the mentor that we worked with. So that obviously gave us a reason to start working with you without knowing anything else. But there's two things. First of all, there's prices, which aren't always cheaper when you work with a fulfillment company. I had products that were cheaper off of AliExpress, but I think the most important thing, especially with you, is that it's not I'm the risk of not being very politically correct. It's not a Chinese company. Everything is very reliable and transparent, and it's so important when you run a business to know exactly what's going on. I mean, the fact that we're here and our stock is somewhere else and our customers are somewhere else and shipping is everywhere, it makes it so difficult to manage. And unless you know that everything is transparent and reliable, and it doesn't mean that there's no issues. So having a good fulfillment company is such a big difference than having to always deal with the issues that come up with it, whether it's payment issues or pricing. We've seen it all. We've seen it all and been through it all, and that's the main thing for me: reliability and transparency.
Okay, and I mean, you obviously mentioned it was the recommendation, and obviously Max worked with us before, but did you compare us with anyone else? Were you close to choosing another fulfillment company, or did you even try another fulfillment company before?
Well, we work with Chinese fulfillment companies, which are actual fulfillment companies, not just an agent here,
Sure.
like actual fulfillment companies. And they were decent, but knowing Max was working with you, and he knew how things were going. I was a part of your groups and stuff, and it's when we came to the decision that we want to leave the previous supplier, it was pretty obvious to us that we're going to do at that point. So we didn't shop around and stuff. It was
okay.
Just what we wanted to do.
Okay. So what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Max, you want to take that?
Sure. So I mean, our short-term goals is, we're I want to say that we're actually focusing more on our niche instead of trying to branch out more generally in terms of what we're offering. I think we're actually trying to hone down and specialize in our industry. we want to become the industry leaders of, this specific niche, and, be able to offer content, training, have a community, with our customers and and be able to provide valuable, real valuable content that will actually, help and motivate our customers moving forward. I think that's more of our short-term plan. Our long-term plan, we have some things in the works that we're working on now, in terms of modifying and updating our current line of products. We're trying to incorporate, taking it to sort of like an app level, and offering different things inside of an app, and offering like more of like a gamification side of things, and really trying to establish it as a brand, and obviously, hopefully one day try to get into retail, and those types of things where we can really push out our brand and what we're trying to focus on. So I think that's short, quick, and easy.
Sure. So what's your plan for Q4, namely Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
So our Q4 strategy is broken down into several different, let's say, paths. The main one being email. Most focus is on email, and it's not only now. I mean, it's how you say in e-commerce, you work all year for Q4. So we worked on building our list as we get close to Q4, so we can really capitalize on it in Black Friday and coming up to Christmas. And then we have some plans in terms of store structure and promotions and different collections and stuff like that. But really, email is where we're going to put all the focus.
Cool. Okay. Anything to add to that, Max? Or
nope, that's pretty much it. I mean, just making sure we're prepped and have enough inventory and everything. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have? I mean, you obviously mentioned email, but do you do anything else like SMS or stuff like that, marketing?
We don't currently do SMS. We used to do SMS, and then things kind of changed a bit with how we did it. I think there was like a double opt-in, and we just didn't see people double opting in to SMS. It was a very, very low rate. And, we just sort of, email is working for us well, so we kind of stick with that.
Okay, cool. So is there any, it's probably going to be a similar answer because also this is a trend, but any advice or recommendations you can give to viewers watching this, whether it's, them kind of sticking it out or if they're thinking of starting dropshipping, mainly focused to, obviously, pointless giving tips or advice to those who are already scaling or at that point, those, say yourself, in the first year of doing e-commerce, basically.
I think the most important thing is I don't know if the most important thing because there are a few important things at that stage, but first of all is understanding that this is a real business. It's not a get rich quick sort of thing, and it's not easy money. I mean, obviously the because it's an online business and the whole consumption, everything that's going on with consumptions over the last few years in terms of buying more online and stuff like that. Still, it's not, if you don't treat it as a business and you don't learn your customers and you don't try to understand and learn the business, like the industry, then in the long term, it's not going to work. Maybe in the short term, you found a product that you're copying and it works hard. It's not going to work, especially now with Facebook costs are so much higher than they used to be. You need to really build a business, in my opinion, build a brand as well, and not just go with products and that's it. And so I think that's one. And another thing is pretty much it's actually related to that is don't give up. I mean, it's hard. It's very hard at the beginning, especially now. But if you do it right and you treat it as a business and you want to learn, I mean, I remember myself, just like Max said, 15-hour days, and not to scare off anybody, right? But it's you have to put in the hours at the beginning and the effort. And I remember every day I would listen to countless YouTube videos, learning all the time, learning more and more and more, trying to implement it, failing here and failing there, and just the understanding that this is going to work. I don't know, it's difficult to explain, because it was just obvious to me at that stage, failure after failure, that this is going to work. I put myself in a situation where I had like, if I'm going to fail, it's going to be a very bad situation for me. I have a family, I have kids. I quit a job that I made very good, a very good salary, and so it's just persevere and keep at it and do it right.
Cool, Max.
Yeah, I mean, sort of similar to what I mentioned. I think it's, especially if you're just starting out, I think, it's really important to not bounce around. Find your, find the path that you want to take, and really find a passionate audience. So instead of trying to find a product first, I think, that's how a lot of people start. They just try to find like a hot product and go from there. I think it's really, nowadays, especially, because of, like Roy mentioned, Facebook costs are rising. Everything is just, it's not the same as it was, in 2016 or 17 or whatever. So it's the game has changed a bit. So I think you really need to focus on a passionate audience, and then from there find whatever it is that you're gonna really help them with, and don't sell junk. Sell something that's gonna make an effect on people's lives and help people in some way or another. And just be persistent. I think that's the most important thing. Also, is just being persistent. Putting in the time, and having the right mindset. Surround yourself with other people. Sort of like Roy and I, we were in a couple groups together, but we would chat all the time together and sort of motivate each other at times when we were down or things weren't working well. And so surround yourself with others who are in the same boat as you and trying to make it happen, and push each other. And ultimately, eventually, if you do all these things and you do it right, and you really, like Roy said, you think of it as a real business, eventually it will work. It's just, it takes time.
Sure, cool. And I'd like to add to that as well, is if you don't have, I think a lot of it rests on what's at stake. Like as Ray was saying, if you failed, it would be a disaster. Like if anyone goes into it half-heartedly, then obviously the chances of them succeeding or just kind of trying to stick it out is going to be very low. They'll probably give up after a month or two. But it was the same with me, when I started, exactly the same, newborn, wife, I think the main thing was that I just hated 9 to 5 so much. I couldn't bear the thought of just doing it for the rest of my life. Yeah. I think that was the biggest thing for me. If I didn't, if I enjoyed my 9 to 5, then of course I may have tried it just out of interest for a month or two, but I definitely wouldn't have stuck it out. So you have to, if you're an easy quitter, or you don't have the desire or will to get somewhere in e-commerce, then it's pointless trying, I guess. So last question, do any of you guys offer any services, whether that's running ads or marketing or managing stores or whatever? No problem if you don't. I'd just like to ask that question as a kind of final thing.
I used to do some coaching, but I had to give it up because it was, I didn't have time. I preferred putting more hours into our business rather than coaching other people, and so I stopped with that. I did that for a couple of years, but other than that, we focus on building our business.
Okay, cool. So I won't put your email address in the comment in the description. Max.
No, I there was a very short period of time where I was offering Facebook ads as a service, and I did it for one company in California, and it just wasn't something that I saw myself doing long term. There's just it wasn't my speed. Even though it's what I do now, and I've always done it. Just different when you're doing it for yourself and when you're doing it for another company. There's a lot of factors, a lot of variables that come into play when you're doing it for someone else, and
cool.
It just wasn't.
Okay. Well, that concludes this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure, and great to see your face, Rowie, the first time.
Yeah, after such a long time.
One, actually, funnily enough, just came to mind. Have you guys, both of you, have actually met each other in real life?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We did.
Where
But it did take a while. It was like, it was.
It-
I think
it
was
took
2
a
or
couple
3
of
years.
years.
Yeah.
Was it? So
Yeah.
when you were both, were you both living in the States at that time?
I was
No,
living. I was living in Israel, and Max, I think you came for a visit or something.
I came in, yeah, late 2019. I actually came, my wife and I came to scope out, try to find an apartment because we were moving in the end of January of 2020, right before COVID. So yeah, when I came in November, that was the first official time that Rowie and I had met in person.
Nice.
That was after 2 or 3 years of talking every day, all day.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time, guys, and
Thank you.
we'll speak soon.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Take care.
Welcome back.
Bye.
Bye.